All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Guru and Shri Guru. Hare Krishna. So before I speak, I would first like to seek blessings from all of the assembled Vaishnavas, Maharajas here, some of the senior devotees, Prabhupada disciples, some of the exalted personalities. I'm very much junior to all of them and many of you. So I would just like to seek blessings so that I can speak something relevant and bona fide on this glorious topic that we'll be discussing today. Only by the mercy of Vaishnavas is anything possible, so therefore I am seeking your blessings. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So we'll be reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, so we'll just repeat the invocation. We're going to read from Madhya Lila, chapter 22. Text 34 is on the board. But before we do, we can repeat the invocation, even though Maharaj has already invocated Lord Chaitanya with his ecstatic kirtan. Nice kirtan?
Yeah.
Everyone feels the cobwebs blown away. So on the Chandramauli Maharaj ki Jai! Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Rita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Rita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Rita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Rita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Rita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Rita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki
Jai.
Shri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami ki
Jai.
Shri Prabhupada ki
Jai.
So I will say and you can repeat. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Sakrideva Prapanoya
Sakrideva Prapanoya
Bhavasmiti Chayachate
Bhavasmiti Chayachate
Abhayam Sarvada Tasmai
Abhayam Sarvada Tasmai
Dami Tadratam Mama
Dami Tadratam Mama
Sakrideva Prapanoya
Sakrideva Prapanoya
Bhavasmiti Chayachate
Bhavasmiti Chayachate
Abhayam Sarvada Tasmai
Abhayam Sarvada Tasmai
Vidam Yetadvratam Mama
Dami Tadratam Mama
Sakrideva Prapanoya
Sakrideva Prapanoya
Bhavasmiti Chayachate
Bhavasmiti Chayachate
Abhayam Sarvada Tasmai
Abhayam Sarvada Tasmai
Vidam Yetadvratam Mama
Dami Tadratam Mama Sakrideva Prapanoya Bhavasmiti Chayachate Abhayam Sarvada Tasmai Dami Tadratam Mama
Sakrideva Prapanoya
Sakrideva Prapanoya
Bhavasmiti Chayachate
Bhavasmiti Chayachate
Abhayam Sarvada Tasmai
Abhayam Sarvada Tasmai
Dadami Etadritam Mama
Dami Tadratam Mama
Sakrideva Prapanoya
Sakrideva Prapanoya
Bhavasmiti Chayachate
Bhavasmiti Chayachate
Abhayam Sarvada Tasmai
Abhayam Sarvada Tasmai
Pradamyata Vratam Mama
Ladies, please.
Abhayam sarvada tasmai Namagiratam mama Sakrideva prapanuya Tavasmati jayachate Abhayam sarvada tasmai Namagiratam pratam mama Sakrideva prapanuya Tavasmiti jayachate
Abhayam sarvada tasmai Nami itam itad satam mama
Word for word translation. Sakrit, once only. Eva, certainly. Prapanaha, surrender. Yaha, anyone who. Tava, yours. Asmi, I am. Iti, thus. Cha, also. Yachate, praise. Abhayam, fearlessness. Sarvada, always. Tasmai, unto him. Dadami, I give. Etat, this. Vratam, vow. Mama, my. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. It is my vow that if one only once seriously surrenders unto me, saying, my dear Lord, from this day I am yours, and prays to me for courage, I shall immediately award courage to that person, and he will always remain safe from that time on. Purport. This verse from the Ramayana, Yudhakand, 1833, was spoken by Lord Ramachandra. Those in the Bhaktivedanta purports. Hare Krishna. I wanted to read also the verse that precedes this. The verse that precedes is written by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, and he is quoting a statement from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And after I read it, it's a verse that I would like us all to repeat together. So first let me read. Krishnana tamara hoy yadi bale ekivar. Maya bande hoite Krishna tara karipar. One is immediately freed from the clutches of Maya if he seriously and sincerely says. I guess the first question is anyone here interested in being freed from the clutches of Maya? Of course, that's apart from those exalted personalities who are already free from the clutches of Maya. But I think it reminds me of one pastime. Srila Prabhupada, I think the last time he visited Bury Place in London, and he was offering obeisances in front of Shri Shri Radha. And when he stood up, he was offering deep prayers, and tears were coming from his eyes. And later in the car, when they were driving back to the manor, His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, Prabhupada, we want to know what you were praying to the deities because you were so moved. And Prabhupada, I was praying to Radha, please don't let me fall into Maya. And the devotees were like, Prabhupada, how can you fall into Maya? You're not in Maya, you're Krishna's pure devotee. And Srila Prabhupada said, I won't fall into Maya if I keep praying like this. So this is the example of the pure devotee. So would we like to hear this prayer to help us get free from the clutches of Maya? If you want to hear, you have to say, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
My dear Lord, although I have forgotten you for so many long years in the material world, today I am surrendering unto you. I am your sincere and serious servant. Please engage me in your service. So nice, huh? So would you like to repeat that prayer before their lordships and Srila Prabhupada? Please repeat. My dear Lord Krishna, although I have forgotten you for so many long years in this material world, today I am surrendering unto you. I am your sincere and serious servant. Please engage me in your service. Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki Jai. So then Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami quotes that verse next, quoting Lord Ram, and stating that this is what Lord Ram has said. So Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is simply repeating the words of the previous avatar, like that. So, before I began, I wanted to just offer a few prayers of gratitude and to chant the Mangala-charana prayers so that I can get my consciousness into the right place. So you're welcome to join me if you know the prayers. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobisham Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Saitam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinavantu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Yoramye Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishamanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda So anyone knows where this verse from Ramayana is spoken, when it was spoken, apart from Maharaj? You're disqualified for this one, Maharaj. Otherwise you always win. But you just told him.
You're just checking it.
Oh, okay. What is it?
Speaking to Vibhishan.
Yes, the pastime of Vibhishan. So because everyone here is being blinded by the sun, yes. Don't worry, it's not my effulgence, unfortunately. So yes, the past, and everyone knows who Vibhishan is. Maharaj also spoke about him yesterday. He was mentioned in Maharaj's verse that he spoke on yesterday. So kind of picking up where Maharaj left off yesterday. So after Hanuman finished his monkey business, in Lanka and went back, then he informed the other monkeys that were there, and they went back and informed Ram, and then they came to the shores of India and preparing to build the bridge to Lanka. And meanwhile, in Lanka, there was great turmoil that was going on, actually, because Hanuman, one little monkey, had just created so much devastation that Ravana was feeling a little worried. He was feeling a little concerned, as was everyone else, feeling a bit threatened. So Ravana decided to gather all his ministers together and have a conversation to take some guidance. So the topic of today's talks from Maharaj and myself will focus on two principles. The first one is leadership, and the second one is decision-making. And when I say that word leadership, some of you are probably thinking, oh, that's really not so much for me. And then some of you are thinking, Jaya, I'm a great leader, this must be for me. But I just wanted to clarify that according to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, everyone should become a guru. Everyone should become a guru. Everyone. Not just the men, but ladies, also children. And we have the example of Prahlad Maharaj, who was a great leader at the age of, how old was Prahlad when he was preaching in school? 5 years old, he was preaching in school. So all of us should become leaders. And if you're a parent, if you're a mother or father, any mothers or fathers in the room? Okay. So you're a leader. In fact, you're considered the first guru. For all of us, parents are considered our first gurus. Anyone here planning to be a parent? Yes. So get ready. Then you'll get to find out what your parents had to go through. So yeah, it's not an easy post, but it's an important thing to understand what are some different qualities of leaders. So whenever there's leadership discussion, we shouldn't disconnect and feel that it's not about us, because actually it is about us, especially if we're trying to represent Srila Prabhupada, represent ISKCON. In fact, there's a wonderful story by His Holiness Satsvarup Maharaj, and he tells how once he was traveling, and he was flying from somewhere quite far away, and he was flying into a city in America where he had a university preaching program in the evening or in the afternoon. But the flight was delayed. And so as the plane was touching down, Maharaj was feeling anxious. And he was thinking, I need to get off the plane. I'm sure Maharaj here knows that experience. You have scheduled events and planes are late and traffic and so many things, and there's some anxiety. So Maharaj explains that as the plane was touching down, he was thinking, I need to get my bag, I need to grab my stuff, and I need to get as close to the front of the plane as I possibly can so that I can get off and try to make it in time. So it wasn't quite like an Air India flight, like before the plane even touches down, everybody's standing up in the aisles, pulling their bags out. the stewardess is like, sit down, sit down. They're like, but Marge kind of did a little bit like that. And he grabbed his bag and he started to move as quickly to the front before anyone got in the aisle. And he bumped into one elderly lady. And when he bumped into her, he kind of pushed her a little bit. And then she turned around and she looked Marge square in the eyes. And she said, are all Hare Krishnas like you? And Marge immediately realized that wherever I go, I'm a representative of Srila Prabhupada. I am a representative of ISKCON. And I'm a representative of Krishna. And the entire movement will be judged by those around me how I act. So he immediately apologized, he folded his palms, and he said, I'm so sorry. And no, all Hare Krishnas aren't like me. He said, I'm a very bad example. And he begged forgiveness from her. And actually from that mood of humility, Marge explains that they struck up a conversation and she actually became a little bit won over. And he was, not offering any excuses. But the point is that wherever we go, and even if we don't dress in devotee attire, as we were discussing yesterday, devotees emit a certain aura about them. People know, even though they might not know consciously, they know that you're a devotee. And so we might think we can act a certain way in certain circumstances, but we all have to be very careful because we should consider ourselves ambassadors of Srila Prabhupada, ambassadors of ISKCON, wherever we go, ambassadors of our spiritual masters, so like that. Does that make a little bit of sense?
Yes.
Sorry, Marge?
It's very important. Very important.
Very important point. So, back to the pastime. So Ravan, he sets a very good example actually because he calls counsel around him. And we have our own Ravan here. Can you give us a laugh, Ravan? That was a bit weak. I didn't know you were such a wimp, Ravan. Before breakfast. Okay, understood. But unfortunately, Ravan surrounded himself primarily with what we call yes men. What did you say? Women?
I said no.
Oh, he surrounded himself by lots of women also. But yeah, by demons. They were all Rakshasas. But they were yes men. Which means whatever he said, they would go, yes, 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 yes. Yes, yes, yes. Ravan, you're the greatest. Ravan, you're so wonderful. Yeah, whatever you say, Ravan, we like. So Ravan was trying to take counsel, but actually, truly, he wasn't really so interested in hearing anything from them except, yes, whatever you say is perfect. And that's not really such good leadership. And one thing I've noticed over the years is that there's a tendency, if you do become like a leader, to surround yourself by people who will say, yes. That's a very dangerous position. In fact, if you build a council around you, you should always make sure that there's at least one or two people on the team that you know will almost always disagree with you. But your ego, your false ego, will not want to do that. But the intelligence should think, this will give me a much more rounded perspective. There will be people who challenge what I say, which will force me to think more deeply. And it means that likely the better result will come out because I'll think more widely. But it's not so much the done thing. Fortunately for Ravan, he had someone on his council who was not afraid to speak from virtue, from morality, from truth. And that was his half-brother, Vibhishan. And so after everyone kept saying yes, 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 Vibhishan said, actually, wise people know that you should always attempt other methods of resolution before going to war. You should exhaust all possibilities, and war should only be the last result. The last resort. It should be the last thing that we do, because that is going to incur so much pain and suffering on so many others. So best is that you do this way. And of course everyone was completely silent. And Ravan said, anyway, thank you for speaking. He was a little gracious, but he said, I'm going to retire now and think for myself, and I'll let you know tomorrow. So the next day, Vibhishan, he was worried all night because he was thinking this is going to be the end of Lanka if he continues in this way. And he thought, I have to try. I have to keep trying to make him see sense. So he went to meet him the next day, and he explained to him yet again that there are so many omens. And he reminded him that actually your benediction can be undone by men and animals. So you should be very careful. But Ravan again dismissed him. He didn't want anything to, he didn't want to hear it. It becomes very hard to hear. You know, my mom used to say this when I was young. She used to say, you have selective hearing. You only hear what you want to hear. And I said, yeah, what's wrong with that? I didn't hear what you just said, Mom. What was that? So, yeah, the tendency is to only hear what we want to hear. And especially when the false ego is inflated. It's like this membrane of false pride covers these two little holes, these gateways into the body, so that anything good bounces out. Any good advice kind of comes out, and all we hear is what's going on inside. And especially because Ravana was so contaminated by, what was he contaminated by? Lust. He just wanted to enjoy Sita. He just wanted to enjoy Sita. But lust isn't only the desire to enjoy someone of the opposite sex, but Sita Devi, she also, or the same sex, or whatever kind of sex these days, but it's the strong desire to enjoy or exploit something or someone for one's own pleasure. This is lust. And Sita Devi represents the goddess of fortune. She is the energy of God, of Lord Ram. She is the potency of Lord Ram. And therefore, Ravan just wants to exploit the energy of God, right? Like Srila Prabhupada said in one of his early Back to Godhead magazines, that we want the kingdom of God, but we don't want God. We want the king out, and we want a new king, right? But we should remember that the position of God is taken already. There won't be any want ads that come on the internet saying, position of God, open and available. Please apply here. It's already taken. It'll always be taken. There's no chance of entering into that position. But because we can't become God, then we want to exploit God, exploit His energy. It's like, I feel like we're sailing on a ship. Everyone's like, land ho! Yesterday I think there was a scream or something behind you. Anyway, it's nice to have the sun beating on my head. I'm going to be a real redneck after this. Officially and formally. So, anyway, continuing the story. So Vibhishan tried, but Ravana couldn't hear. He went into the council room, and again, everyone was saying, no, we can defeat them, we can defeat them. Ravana, we're with you. But then another person tried to give him good advice. Who was that? Kumbhakarna, yes. Kumbhakarna, who just happened to wake up that one day for the council meeting, you know? Once every 6 months he gets a day. And of course some people think, he got a good deal, that guy. I'd love to just sleep for 6 months straight. But he was up for that one day and he said, Ravana, you're coming to us now asking for our counsel. But why didn't you ask us before you kidnapped Sita? Why didn't you ask us then? You know, there's this expression that I hear devotees use a lot. Better to ask for forgiveness than to beg forgiveness than to ask permission. That means I won't ask permission, I'll just do it. And if I get in trouble, then I'll say, oh, sorry about that. So that's what Ravana did. He just went ahead and did whatever he wanted to do, and now all of a sudden he wants everyone's input. But Kumbhakarna said, but anyway, what's done is done, so I'm going to stand by you. And again Vibhishan spoke up. And he was citing Shastra and just saying that this doesn't make sense. It's not going to work. It's going to be the complete undoing of our entire kingdom. And it's just best if you give back Sita. Just return Sita. You've had her now for 10 months. And you haven't been able to enjoy with her anyway. And of course at that point, some of the people asked, why haven't you been able to enjoy? And he had to reveal this curse that if he, as Maharaj mentioned yesterday, that if he actually tried to forcibly exploit another woman, then he would die, you know, in that exact moment. But he lied. Ravana lied. He said, Sita has told me that after 1 year, she will enjoy with me. And so he fed, what do they call it? Fake news. He fed misinformation to his council. He lied to the council. These are the people you're meant to be able to trust. These are the people you're meant to be able to confide in. But when we become contaminated by so much lust, the tendency is that we start to lie. What's that saying? Oh, what a wicked web we weave when once we start to deceive. So one lie leads to another lie, then you have to lie about the lie, and then you have to remember the lie you told in the beginning so you can keep on lying. I'm sure no one here has ever had that experience. But when I was a young man, I used to lie a lot, unfortunately. And I would always get myself into trouble, and then I'd find my stomach all twisted up in knots, like stressed out, like, oh God, what if they... Every time the phone, because I used to lie, I got expelled from school once, and I didn't tell my mom. I just kind of, you know, I went out to get on the bus, she went off to work, I said, bye Mom, she left, and I went back inside. Party time, right? But actually, every time the phone rang, I thought, might be the school calling to check, because actually I'm really having a confession time here. Because I forged her name on the letter. So, I don't do that anymore, I promise. I haven't forged a name in a long time. But, a couple of weeks anyway. But, yeah, so once you lie, you get caught up in the whole thing, right? So, anyway, he lied to his council. This isn't a sign of good leadership. But anyway, Vibhishan tried yet again. But this time Ravana had had enough, and he kind of slammed his hand and he said, you know, it'd be better to live with a poisonous serpent than to live with a family member who's meant to be a support and a friend. And he was just so rude to Vibhishan that Vibhishan just thought, that's it. I've had enough. I can't do this anymore. But he was still 100% committed to supporting his community. So actually the real leader in this situation emerged. And Vibhishan was actually the real leader. And then he made a very difficult decision. He made a decision to leave Lanka. And he took 4 of his closest associates. And he went to India, where Ram and the monkey army were gathered. Now, this is a huge decision. This isn't an easy thing. He left his home. He left his family. He left all honor, all prestige. He left wealth, position. And not only that, he was in great danger because he was the enemy. And he was going to the other side. And he had no idea how they would respond. He had no idea how they would respond. But he knew that he had to take the chance. He had to try. Just like he kept trying with Ravana. And this is another good point, that we should keep trying. We should. Nitai, go primitive. This young lady here, she's so sad. They only closed one. They left her in the sun. She's so happy now. I was starting to sweat like it. Okay. Now we've been plunged into darkness.
I can actually see you now.
You can see me.
I couldn't see you before.
Controlled my effulgence. So, yeah, it was a very difficult decision to make, but he went there anyway, and we're running out of time, and I want to finish on time. So when Vibhishan arrived, then Sugriva and the monkey army was there, specifically Sugriva and Hanuman, and they saw them. And he began to speak to Sugriva and to Hanuman. And he explained, I'm the brother of Ravan, but I've come to surrender. I've come to surrender myself to Lord Ram. Please let me see him so that I can surrender. Sugriva was so suspicious. He thought, this is not good. Because Rakshasas by nature are not trustworthy. They're by nature deceitful. By nature they take disguises. And they're manipulative. Just look at the way Ravan took Sita. No dignity, no integrity, no respect. How can we trust this person? So they went to Ram. And what did Ram do? What did Lord Ram do? He immediately called all the generals around him. And he said, what is your opinion? We've heard from Sugriv. What is your opinion? And everyone said, yeah, we agree with Sugriv. And then Hanuman was very quiet. He didn't speak. And so Lord Ram said, Hanuman, what do you think? And he said, my Lord, you are perfectly capable to make this decision on your own. But out of your humility, you're asking our opinion. And only because you've asked me to speak will I offer my opinion. So it shows such powerful humility. And then he said, I disagree with everybody else. He said, I did not detect any dupliciousness, any deceit in Vibhishan. He said, when someone comes with ill motive, especially if you're trained a little bit, you can always detect a little bit of deceit. And he said, and I didn't see any signs of deceit, so I think actually it's to our benefit if we accept him and we bring him into the folds of our army. He'll be a great asset. And then Hanuman said, but my lord, what do you think? And Lord Ram said, I agree with you, Hanuman. But Sugriva said, no! I don't think this is a good decision. We should really think about this more. You know, we could be in big trouble if he infiltrates the army and these 5 Rakshasas, they could just tear us apart from inside, and we don't know which ones are hiding elsewhere that we can't see. We don't know what's going on. And Ram said, Sugriv, all your concerns are well-founded. Thank you. He was so grateful to hear even an objection to his leadership. Does that make sense? He didn't say, Sugriv, shut up. Get out of here. Nobody wants to. We already heard from you. You keep your mouth shut. Right? Hopefully no one's experienced leaders like that, but they do exist in the world. But no, he was very grateful to hear from Sugriva. And he said, anyway, I've thought about this already quite deeply. And Shastra explains, he said, first, I have to accept anyone who comes to surrender. He said, but Shastra explains that even we should treat our enemy like our best friend with respect if they come to us. Even we should treat our enemy like that if they come to us. You know, if they come knocking on the door, right? You look through the people and you see, oh, not that guy. Oh. And then you, shh, everyone be quiet. Or the phone rings. Like you see that name that you know you'll never answer the phone if that name comes up. But he said, no, we should receive them and treat him with respect. And so, then he quotes this verse that we read today. It is my vow that if one only once seriously surrenders to me, saying, my dear Lord, from this day I am yours, and prays to me for courage, I shall immediately award courage to that person, and he will always remain safe from that time on. And then he said, even if Ravana comes, even if Ravana comes now, imagine that. You know? Somehow I looked at the ladies and some of them like, you know, that thing can be so heavy inside of us, right? I know recently reading through Mahatma Prabhu's book, Living the Wisdom of Bhakti, very good book, I can't suggest it enough. And he talks a lot about one of the principles he teaches and does seminars on, which is forgiveness. Whew. It's a tough one. Theoretically, you know, shastrically I get it, theoretically I get it, but practically, will I let go? Will I genuinely let go? You know, is it that if Ravan shows up, is Ram going to say, yes, 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 pat him on the head, but inside he's thinking, I just want to kick you between the teeth, you know? No, he's going to completely just accept him in and let go. Now, of course, they say you can forgive, but you shouldn't forget. But still, Ram was ready to accept even Ravan. So like this. So, again, wonderful lesson that Lord Ram, being the Madhya Purushottam, he is the perfect person, the perfect example And there's so many wonderful lessons from the Ramayana, from the life of Lord Ram, and from so many of the characters. In this situation, it was glorious that Sugriva wasn't afraid to speak his mind. That means that the leader had created an atmosphere where there wasn't fear to speak your mind. And Hanuman also wasn't afraid to speak his mind, even though Sugriva and the others were senior to him. But he felt, I have to be able to, because there's an atmosphere of trust. And Prabhupada said that our movement should be based on love and trust. So in this way we can try to develop these relationships. And then so Lord Ram said, bring Vibhishan here. And he brought Vibhishan. Vibhishan surrendered. He accepted his surrender and he began to question him. And afterwards he said, you've answered all the questions with such integrity and honesty that I can see that actually you're the true leader of Lanka. And he said, bring some water. And they brought water. Lord Ram sanctified the water. And then he coronated Vibhishan on the spot. He said, I will destroy Ravana. I will destroy Ravana and reclaim Lanka, and I will install you, Vibhishan, as the rightful king. And you'll always live under my protection. It's pretty powerful. Very powerful.
He's Chiranjeevi. He's a Chiranjeevi.
Who's that? Vibhishan is a Chiranjeevi also. I'd like to see that list. You said there were 12 of them, right?
There's stories of people seeing him today.
Wow, that's amazing.
He comes out of the ocean, Jagannath Puri.
Did anyone hear that? So yesterday Maharaj spoke of a term, Chiranjeevan, which means persons who basically are more or less immortal. They carry on living on the planet forever, I guess, until the devastation. But so he said that Vibhishan is a Chiranjeevan, and people sometimes see him. And he comes out of the ocean in Jagannath Puri, near Jagannath Puri sometimes. And so people have seen him, so like that. Thank you, Maharaj. So that's it. I ran over time, and I'm sorry. I'm going to blame Maharaj because he led such an ecstatic kirtan. Thank you. I don't know if there's time for a question or not, or if we should just finish. Ms. Kinchana, I think we should have a question. One question. Someone has a question. Yes, Lord Ram. Jai Ram. Jai Ram. Jai Shri Ram.
Thank you for a wonderful class.
I can only see personalities from the drama now. Janak Maharaj is at the back. Lord Ram. And of course, Robin. Seems to be our leader. Yes, Prabhuji, please.
Thank you for a wonderful class, Prabhu.
Thank you for your encouragement.
One question for me, please. So just in this age, obviously, what techniques do you recommend so we can look at our enemies with compassion?
In this age, what techniques do we recommend for looking at our enemies with compassion? Very nice question. So I think it's 15, is it 15:7? Mamaivam so jiva loke jiva bhuta natana sanatana jiva bhuta sanatana. That all living entities are Krishna's parts and parcels. And all of them, all of us, are struggling with the senses, the 6 senses, which includes the mind, which is the most difficult to control. It's more difficult to control the mind than to control the raging wind. And if Arjuna says that, then it must be true. Krishna agreed. He said, yes, you're correct. But by?
Surrender.
No, but yes. Yes. It's not the exact word. He said by?
Constant practice and detachment.
That's right. By suitable practice and detachment, one can control the mind. So, just like, so we have to first try. See, this is the thing. Actually, we can read the philosophy, we can sit and hear the philosophy, but until we apply the philosophy, mercy is there, but we have to also do our part. Krishna wasn't bound because Mother Yashoda said, da, 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 da. I've only got one rope, Krishna. Mother Yashoda was perspiring intensely. She had come to the end of all rope in the whole village trying to bind Krishna. She had given every ounce of her energy to try to tie Krishna. And then Krishna said, okay, we can't just say, God, I've been chanting Hare Krishna for 2 months. Come on, Krishna. Cut me a break. How come I'm not a liberated soul, 2 years, 10 years. So we have to endeavor to apply the philosophy, and that means we also have to try to see with Shastra Chakshus. We have to see through the eyes of knowledge. We have to see and think with that consciousness. So when someone is standing before us, and we were discussing this, I think, on the first night I was here with some devotees, we had a little impromptu class, that there is a point between stimulus and response where we can decide how to respond instead of just reacting. And we can do that later also after someone has wronged us. We have to be introspective ourselves, and we have to see that we're all struggling like anything in this place, It's not easy for anyone, and some people you'll often find there's so much backstory, right? So even we're cursing cursing Ravan, but who was Ravan? He was a blinking gatekeeper of Vaikuntha. He's only here as part of the Lila of Krishna. Meanwhile, everyone's like, kill Ravan, kill Ravan. But there's so much backstory. And for everybody, there's always some backstory. You go back to their childhood, you find out, God, there's so many things. So there's so many stories we can tell about that. But anyway, the point is, first, let us try to see them as a spirit soul suffering in the material world. And anyway, in the material world, we all do so many silly things because the modes of material nature are so strong that even, what does Bhagavad Gita say, even a man of great spiritual strength can succumb to the senses. Because the modes of material nature are so strong. They're so constituted. It's very, very difficult to overcome. It's difficult for devotees who know Daiviyeshu Gunamayi Mamamayi Durajaya. What to speak of someone who doesn't? What hope have they got? They're just being flung around by the modes of material nature. If a child comes up now and knocks over this glass of water, what do? Scold him, scream, shout, beat him, put him in the corner? Or do we just say, it's just a child? Okay, don't do that again, but, so we have to see, sometimes we have to think like that. And begin to at least enter into a space of accepting that people are just suffering and they're being forced against their will to act, even when they know better. Right? And that way we use knowledge to help us to secure a position of consciousness that can help us to see things as they are, rather than from the position of false ego where I've been hurt. How could you have been hurt? The soul can neither be burned by fire, moistened by water, withered by the wind. You can't be touched by anything in this world. You are not that body. You are not that false ego. You are spirit soul, and you're free from all of these things. So what are you talking about? You were hurt. You see what I mean? But it's often better not to think about our situation because we're hurt. But at least we can try to see the other person who's in the moods. Sorry, I'm rambling on. I'm going to finish now. Oh, dear mother in the back, and only because you're so exalted. And if Ravan says you can speak, then you can speak. Okay, mother, go.
Did you know if in the Mahabharata, Ramayana, they explain because they tell me there's Kumbhakarna stay only one day by year.
Yes.
Wake up.
Yes.
How he participate in the battle?
Because they woke him up. I guess he was awake that one day in 6 months, so in the next, by the time the battle started and it came to that point, then they woke him up for one day, I guess. I don't know the whole thing, maybe Maharaj could, but that's my understanding.
It really describes in detail what they tried to do to wake him up. It was not easy. They were driving chariots over his body, beating drums and hitting him with clubs. And after some time, he turned a little bit. It's described in detail. That wasn't the time for him to get up.
It wasn't the time.
Yeah. They woke him up.
Yeah, it wasn't the time for him to be awoken, but they did everything they could to wake him up. Yeah. It's kind of like us sometimes, right? Mangalarti, ki jai. Hare Krishna. Brahmacharya ashram, yeah. Oh, God. Anyway, thank you all very, very much. Please forgive me for going over time. It's a great honor to be here. I did want to say one thing at the end, just very quick. I just wanted to say how glorious it is to be here in the association of so many wonderful souls who have dedicated their lives here. Thank you. I mean, can you imagine having a castle? I sit out the front and I think, Prabhupada has a castle. I mean, he's got a few castles, or at least a couple. But it's like, wow, this is so amazing. So, I was just thinking, we're all here. We should try to help them. That's it. Haribol. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai! Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai! Nitai Gaura Premanandi! Haribol!
Hare Krishna, everyone. So before everyone leaves, I know breakfast is beckoning.